In the second video, we'll be talking about checking as you go. Now, the most important part of this is make sure that everyone is working on the latest copy, whatever you're working on. Make sure that if you're working with Google Documents, people sign in and make changes only on that document. In the past, sometimes a team would send me information and say, can you edit this? And I would make the edits and send it back to the team leader. And then the group that was working on that would make their own edits, but on the previous version, and send it back to me, and my edits weren't there. And I either have to make them again or point out and say, hey, you didn't change this. So make sure that you continually are working on the latest version in whatever way you arrange that. But also keep a record of those changes. Make sure you have someone assigned to document every week, make a backup copy of whatever you have at that point. This helps in case there's some sort of a computer failure or loss, and also helps you to see the progress over time. Now, as you write, you will change things. You'll change some of the content, you'll change certainly the way that it's written. It's just like an artist doing a painting. First, you sort of lay out the general background, and then you fill in some of the main elements, and you cover some of the things that you put there before. And then you add the details. And again, in doing that, you cover some of the things that you had drawn before.
Let me give an example. The other day, I went to a workshop learning from Claude Monet's very famous water lilies, how to paint water lilies. So, just like what you said, we started with the background. And the background is the sky and the water. That's the background. And as we paint the background, we always also painted the rim. So you can see the lighter color there, okay? But what I want to say is learning from the artist how to paint something is very much like our research method. Learning follow the same method step by step in order to paint something. But as I learned to paint water lilies, I chose my different goals. I don't want to duplicate what Monet did, but I want to foreground, instead of foregrounding the lilies, I want to foreground the light. So, in other words, I feel my final goal is to showcase light, bright light. It's so important in my life. And all these details, the willows, the lilies, are supporting elements in my life. So it's totally the opposite of the original copy. That's how I learned from painting. I think the same principle applies to research methods, learning how to conduct research.
Right. So first you try to copy someone, but as you copy, you don't make an exact copy necessarily, but you include your own elements. That's what makes it yours.
And at the end, this painting represents who I am, and what I identify with, what's important in my life.
Another thing that you should do is present as you go. Present your work frequently to different audiences. But as you do that, don't aim always for a polished presentation. Aim instead for comments on what's good about it, what you could improve, what to include, what not to include, what's clear, what's not clear. And in the process, learn skills for PowerPoint, skills for speaking and presentation. And again, document all of these different times that you meet with people to learn these different skills. And that's an important part of the gold medal integrated human practice. Because as you go along, you'll find that you had an original aim, but then it will diverge from that. At some point, you'll be going in a slightly different direction. And you need to adjust your stated aim to match where you finally reached. rather than trying to swing back to that original goal, which is you often left because it's not feasible. You can't do it. But if you find you're missing the target completely, well, then you need to rethink. But no matter what, it's better to correct early. If you shoot 10 arrows in the wrong direction, you've lost all those 10 arrows. If you shoot 2 arrows and you find it's the wrong direction and you adjust, then you still have 8 arrows on target. So again, no matter what, it's better to check constantly, make corrections early so that you can hit the target more frequently.
But as we conduct research, even though we check very carefully, we make corrections all the time, sometimes we still find our final goal is not the same as what we plan to do from the very beginning. So we need to accept the reality.
Right.
Maybe 20% of the time, when we reach the goal, we are pleasantly surprised. The goal is better than what we had expected. But many times, we may reach a big hole, an empty hole after we jump. Then we may hurt ourselves. Or sometimes we reach the final top, then we realize there's no turning back. We can only jump. And if we jump, we might hurt ourselves. So that's life. In other words, we need to keep in mind the research process is a process. The final product may not match what you expected at the beginning, but you may find something important in the journey. You may find something even pleasantly surprising to you.
But as you said, maybe only 20% of the projects that we do really turn out great. And it's the same thing with iGEM. Maybe only 1 out of 5 years will really be a marketable success. No matter what, you will learn something in the process that will help you in your future life to choose a good course. So we need to learn as we go. Part of learning as you go, again, in regard to checking, is learning to avoid things that waste time. There are many little things in writing that can waste a lot of time, and it's important to learn to do these right the first time. And many of these are different in Chinese and English. One of the things that's important is different fonts. And this has to do with the way that Word or other word processors handle transfers, copying in, pasting in. If you copy and paste, often it will keep the original formatting. And then that font, the size, everything is different. And this can really stand out as something that's you didn't pay attention to detail. So as you paste in, pay attention to that little clipboard icon. If you click on that, it gives you different options of how you want to paste in. In many cases, it will choose to merge formatting. But merged means it takes a little of this and a little of that, and it doesn't keep really either one. If you don't have any bold or italics or underlining or things, the best option usually is keep text only. And then that will use the formatting of your original document. Another problem is Chinese input, particularly with regard to punctuation. Many of you are working on a Chinese word processor. And if you type English text, it will type English text. But as soon as you hit punctuation, it will put in the Chinese punctuation. And so you need to make sure that you're set for a full English system. English input, English font, all of that in order to make sure that it's full English, including all of the parentheses and things. Another thing that you'll note is that parentheses, things like this, because in Chinese you have boxes, character boxes, and each of those punctuation marks takes a full box. So it looks like there's space on both sides, but there's not. And you don't need to enter any spaces, you just type along, and that's the way it appears. But in English, you need to leave spaces in some places and not in others. This is a particular problem with parentheses. Parentheses should have a space outside, unless it's directly followed by a period or a comma. but no space inside. And that's just something that you need to learn to do because it wastes a lot of time to go back and make all those changes otherwise. Okay, and finally, make a checklist. Know your dates. Know what has to be done at a certain time. Check that and update regularly. And try to have things done at least a week or two before the deadline so that as you find, oh, this isn't right, you have time to make those final changes before the deadline.